more Grandmasters that have popped up in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it's funny. I read the comic, the first issue,
Hmm.
before we went on the air with this thing. I'm trying to remember that other Grandmaster's name.
So we have LaRue and Vetter.
Vetter. That's it. Vetter's the one they introduced,
Yep.
along with Yoda.
Hmm.
So that was kind of, first of all, like I did say when I prefaced this whole thing earlier, was that I was really happy that they actually had Yoda as a Grandmaster. Let me just get that out of the way right now, because one of the concerns that I had was that Yoda maybe was only going to be a master or something. I remember there was some article or something that they were alluding to that Yoda might not be. I mean, he still might be a little different from what we're used to, but the idea of him not being a Grandmaster only a couple hundred years before the Phantom Menace was ridiculous to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, 100 years or 200 years is a lot of time, but still. And the way that this species ages, obviously, is very slow. And I like the way that they drew Yoda as younger, but he doesn't look significantly younger.
Yeah, my only question is, I don't know, did they address who's actually leading the council at that point?
Not really. They basically had this Vetter guy and Yoda, and it really wasn't obvious. I mean, offhand, I would say Vetter probably was, but I don't even know if it. That's the interesting thing about this whole Grandmaster thing, too, is that we're used to having one of them.
Right, and originally, I don't think Grandmasters really existed originally when Lucas kind of created this.
No, I mean, he referred to Yoda as more or less a Grandmaster in the Force, but you'd never hear that term
Right, you just heard
in
more
universe,
in universe.
basically.
Right, right. You just heard Master, Padawan, and of course Knight.
Yeah, it's just that you would assume based
Yeah,
on Yoda's position, because the question always becomes,
but who controls the Masters,
well, where
basically?
was Mace basically in all this? Like he's kind of a master, but is he at Grandmaster level? But he's second to Yoda. I mean, they were
Hmm.
never really clear on the hierarchy of this whole thing. I mean, you knew that Yoda was the head of the council. You basically figured he was a Grandmaster. Um, but they really only started throwing that term around with Luke, believe it or not. And that's why
Hmm.
a lot of times, once Luke basically surpassed Yoda in power, they thought he was the first Grandmaster. In fact, the expanded universe kind of wrote him that way. Like he was almost the first Grandmaster of the Force. But then they sort of went back on that, and then they retroactively made Yoda that way. And then I think that even if you go into the whole Star Wars databanks or whatever,
Hmm.
Yoda's referred to as a Grandmaster. And now you've got it all over the place, because you have obviously the High Republic now. You have these novels where you're introducing a couple of Grandmasters, and you're saying that Yoda's one of them. So
Yeah, because even Palpatine addressed him as Master Yoda.
yeah, but he didn't say Grandmaster
No, that's what I'm
Yoda.
saying. That's my point. Like they didn't acknowledge it in canon, like as far as the films and things like that. But then like they kind of retroactively been
Yeah,
calling,
exactly. I mean, in Masters, almost like Mister, for
yeah, almost like Master, Lady, Lord.
yeah, Master Robin, Master Grayson,
Hmm.
Master Wayne, that kind of thing.
Hmm.
But basically, the idea though, as a rank, and I think that that's really what it comes down to. It's like, is it really a rank? Is it?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's kind of um, you know what? I kind of liken it to kind of to masonry a bit because there's definitely like 3 degrees in masonry, but then those who achieve like 33rd degree, they're kind of people kind of who are not in the organization kind of assume that they're like way up here above everybody else, and it's that's not the case, but it's kind of perceived that way. So a lot of times, even when we're talking about like Mace, he may just been like the cream of the crop of when it comes to the masters, as it were. And then of course Yoda is still like several notches above him.
It's just kind of weird though, because again, it's like they've never really. It's like you said, they've always had this as kind of a title, but it's never been like a true ranking. And I think that that's where it gets a little strange too, because it's only very recently that we even learned on the Sith side of things that the Sith Padawan is an acolyte,
Hmm.
and you have some of these ranking type of things in there too. Ronaldo says, if memory serves me, no other Grandmaster has been mentioned in the book, at least not as far as I have read. Knights and Padawans only. Yeah, it's the comic book where Yoda and Vetter are actually introduced as Grandmasters, which I thought was really weird, like right out of the gate. And this is another thing too. I really wish that I need to try to finish this Thrawn book, because, by the way, it's really good. If you guys haven't read it, you should really check out Thrawn Ascendancy, Chaos Rising. It's a phenomenal book. It basically takes place in the Outer Rim. It deals strictly with the Chiss, with Thrawn. There's no other main characters or anything like that in it, but it's amazing. I believe it's going to be the first of 3 books that are going to be written, but I need to finish that so I can get into the High Republic. I forgot that the High Republic was coming out so quick. For some reason, I thought it was going to be the end of January. I don't know why, but I thought it was going to be the end of January, so that's why I went ahead and bought both Queen's Shadow and Queen's Peril, thinking that when Thrawn was done, I can go into those. That's not going to happen. I'm going to dive right into the High Republic book, which is a fairly long book, too. It's actually about as long as the Thrawn book is, so...
Yeah. Just to kind of go back to what you were saying, as far as rank. So it says in this article, what's interesting is that the High Republic doesn't just confirm one Jedi Master, but 2, which can change how fans perceive the rank. Given that the new era is set hundreds of years prior to the prequel trilogy, it's meant to showcase the Jedi in their prime. It's possible that the Jedi Grandmasters of the time carried out different responsibilities, which Yoda took on himself during the prequel era, which is now known as the Fall of the Jedi. All in all, though, having 3 Jedi Masters is more in line with what the Jedi are meant to be. Sure, the Jedi Council is ruled as a collective body, but Yoda and Mace Windu had much more power than the rest of the Jedi Masters. Having 2 other people of the same rank as Yoda would allow the Jedi to rule more like a committee. Considering what happened to the Jedi when Palpatine came to power, moving away from their roots and more towards an authoritarian body, is partially responsible for the Jedi's downfall.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I mean, I would just be hard-pressed to find... And I get it that with the High Republic, they're trying to differentiate it, like... Because one of the things that they kept saying over and over again was like, look, this is the Jedi in their prime, their zenith, which really kind of surprised me, because I would have thought that the Old Republic would have been, especially the way it was characterized in Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah.
So it's weird that they're saying that this is the Jedi in their prime, but it could very well be, because, they don't really have adversaries right now like the Sith or anything like that.
Yeah.
What's interesting is like one of the, it's like this lizard Jedi Master that's training Creve or something like that. Like I said, I really blew through this book.
That's the thing. We got to get used to all these new names.
I know. I got to get used to these names. And the name of the lizard Jedi Master escapes me, but her lightsaber was kind of like a scimitar.
That's sweet.
Yeah. So I mean, but yet Creve, I think that was her name, who was the Padawan, she had a double-bladed saber that was very similar to, like, a little bit, kind of like Maul's, but...
More like Rey's?
Well, yeah, but we didn't see both.
Rey's wasn't...
Yeah, Rey, she made it out of her staff, but it was like... Yeah, it was just the one side. It wasn't like a double-bladed saber. Right. This is a double-bladed saber, but the thing is that the blade is thinner.
I'm thinking about Evil Rey.
Oh, yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, Evil Rey. And it was sort of like that, but I mean, it was like a little bit thinner, and then the hilt and shaft and everything were a little thinner too. So it was a little bit more like like a pole, exactly. What it kind of reminded me of? If the Beskar staff
or a lightsaber.
That was really more the diameter of the blade. It wasn't that thick at all. It wasn't like what we think of when we think of a lightsaber. But then you had this other one that was more like a scimitar. So it's it's really going to be interesting because I have a feeling that we're going to need a lot of the material before we're fully immersed into this world. Because if you think about it, you have a book and you have a single issue of a comic out. It's really hard to immerse you into this new world because for all intents and purposes, it is. You know, I mean, it's great. Ronaldo says, Eric, out of curiosity, do you find that fairy that appears in the comic annoying? Yes. You know what it reminded me of? It was a little bit like, I don't know if you ever saw the Flintstones, but it was kind of like the Great Gazoo. But kind of like a weird or there was that South Park episode where like they had corn, like the Scooby-Doo gang, and there was like Niblet, that little weird like fairy chicken like mascot, like Niblet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what this thing was like.
Like Woodstock.
It was like this little fairy thing that was just
great. Star Wars has Tinkerbell.
Yeah, exactly. It would make jokes, and it would because Ronaldo was saying that it was for him, and yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird. It was, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna get into this one or not.
Yeah, he said. Ronaldo also says, when I read the preview, I thought it was a Jar Jar's ancestor in some way.
Yeah, it was, and again, it provided a little bit of comic relief, especially when the fairy brought its wife or girlfriend in, and they were. I mean, it was done in such a way that it wasn't quite as intrusive as, say, Jar Jar. Because once Jar Jar came into the picture, he was like the movie. That was the problem that I really had with him. It wasn't even so much just that his character was annoying. I could have dealt with that. What bothered me was the fact that he was like the star, the central figure in the whole film.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, could somebody shut this thing up? I want to hear more about the Jedi. If you think about it, we had been waiting like 30 years to get the backstory of Obi-Wan, Vader, you know, this whole thing. And it's like, okay, we get essentially this overgrown Muppet basically becoming the star of the show and turning this thing into like Sesame Street or something. That's why I think a lot of people had a thing against Jar Jar. It wasn't, if the character had been more of a secondary character that had just popped up in a couple of scenes, I think it would have been okay. But the fact that he was a central figure, he was so prominent. And, in every little scene, they had to show how Jar Jar was reacting to it.
Right.
I mean, come on.
Like, who cares?
And that's my biggest fear about this little fairy thing, that I'm not really sure what its place in this universe is. Because if you think about it, it's like I started to say, we're just now stepping into this whole unknown era. You're not really going to get a feel for it just based on a comic and a book. The book maybe a little bit, because like I said, it's a pretty long book. It's got a lot of pages in it. So it's not like it's only a 200-page book or something. I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot that it gets into. And I don't remember exactly how many books there are in this particular series. Is it like a trilogy
3
or something?
Yeah, there's 3 books. Let me grab that.
Yeah, find out how many books there are. I'm pretty sure it's a trilogy. I know the comic is going to run for 6 issues. And I know they had the first 3. Like, you can buy the first one now, and then the next 2 are on pre-order. I've done that. But they do plan on doing 6 issues, I believe, of this particular run. So it really makes me wonder how many, how many books, how many comics are they going to put out in this world, or is it going to just be, okay, this is the High Republic series, and we're just going to keep putting out different story arcs in it? It's going to be really interesting. Ronaldo, how many pages are in the actual book? So right now I've got the, I got like the ebook, and it's showing me like 800, and it's not like I have some like giant font size either. Ronaldo also says, at least that fairy had more dialogue than the Knights of Ren, which is kind of sad. I mean, really, and this is, again, if you really want to see where the Knights of Ren are cool, you got to read the Rise of Kylo Ren comic. They're amazing. And there's that one, oh man, that one time where they tried to take on Luke.
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
that is like one of the coolest. See, this is the Luke that everybody wanted in The Last Jedi, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But, unfortunately, Lucasfilm has decided that if you want to see all the things that all the casual fans want to see, you got to read books and things like that, which, again, I get. I really do think that the books are a central part of everything, and I think that everybody should read them. I just don't think that it should be necessary, though. Once again, if you introduce something in a film, you should resolve it or explain it in a film. So the Knights of Ren were definitely mentioned in The Force Awakens, because the way they brought them up in The Force Awakens, you thought, okay, these guys are really going to be kind of featured pretty heavily in The Last Jedi, and they weren't.
Yeah, we got Light of the Jedi, Test of Courage, and The Great Jedi Rescue.
Okay. So far it's just basically a trilogy then.
Mm-hmm.
Is Claudia Gray writing any of those?
Yes, Claudia Gray has... where's her book?
I know she was supposed to write one of them.
Yeah, she's written one of them. Trying to find...
Because and that's why, again, I think it's interesting that they're starting to put these things out, and it makes me wonder if they're going to start to expand it even further. They got the comic, they've got the books.
I'm sorry. So it's Light of the Jedi. She writes the third book.
She writes the third book.
Yeah, Into the Dark.
Okay. So that should be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to that. And it's really going to be interesting to me. Ronaldo says he also has the ebook. It's like 660 pages. Okay. Yeah, so I mean it's pretty long. It's like mine saying that it's like around 700 or 800 pages. It says 660. So it's definitely a healthier, thicker book. So, these aren't short books, which I'm actually glad about, too, because I do think that this first batch, you really have to introduce us to this world. You have to give us some sort of a picture of not just the characters, not just, the good versus the evil and all that stuff. We actually need the world building. Mm-hmm. We need to know what this world looks like. We need to know what it feels like. And because you can't show it to us in a movie or a TV show or something, you're going to have to do a good job explaining it to us through the books.
Definitely.
All right. But again, what about you guys? Are you guys really charged up about this whole High Republic thing? Do you have any of the books? Like Ronaldo's got one of the books. I've got one of the books. I'm sure Daryl will soon have one.
Yep.
Let us know in the comment section what you guys are thinking about. And if you've read it, let us know that too. And let us know your thoughts.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.